I have a database of over 10,000 articles and 200 topics where articles are grouped according to source material for the basic concept, and sometimes just grouped in a way that is relating to time. For example, I might group articles from a certain period to get sort of a feel for what was happening. These articles span from the early 1990s to 2014, over a decade's worth of research. What it is that I began tracking was change. Speed of change is the pace of change speeding up in certain areas. The velocity of events, how many events are occurring within a given time frame. And impact. How important are these? What it is that I'm trying to see is I'm looking forward into the future to confirm certain intuitions. You can call it forward looking. You can call it prophecy. You can call it futurology. Whatever you want to call it. Mortgage speculation. Whatever you want to call it, we're looking forward in time. And we're using certain events as markers from what we call the past to look forward into the future. For example, will the sun set? Will I witness the sun setting tonight? Two different questions. Will I witness the sunset is subject to my own demise. If the experiencer does not witness the act, does it occur? Ancient question. And does the event occur independent of the experiencer? And can consciousness be eliminated? It's a far more serious question than we usually like to ponder. Because, given what we know about physics, we can't say for sure that when I die, I just don't wake up in some other parallel universe. You know, sort of a Schrodinger's cat experience. You witness me dying, but I don't. I witness me not dying. But these are esoteric questions. Let's talk about our current situation, our current reality, if we wish to frame it in those terms. The shared experience, for better or for worse, this is what we have. Yet we all know that the experiences that we share often contain minor discrepancies, sometimes major ones. What one person can be experiencing as exciting and thrilling, another person can be experiencing as absolute terror. Who pulls the trigger? Who dies? Who jumps out of the plane? Who flies? Different experiences of a reality. So it's very difficult for us to actually talk about what we call reality. It's usually what we really mean is my reality. And if you don't agree with my reality, then you're crazy. Or maybe I am. Another aphorism of forward looking that I have discovered on my own. And I call it the aphorism of prophecy, of forward looking, is that you cannot be in the picture. In other words, we always tend to see ourselves in whatever future we envision, which is why we don't like to look too far ahead. Because clearly, 200 years from now, barring some sort of technological miracle or some other unknown event, none of us will physically be here. So we don't like to look any farther than our own lifetime, as it were. And we don't even like to look too far into that. If I'm 50 and I'm looking 40 years ahead, there's a good chance I won't be here. But yet, age gives us a clearer and more concise understanding of time itself. Time moves, and we're aware of its passing. Or our movement through it, depending which cosmological viewpoint do you choose. It's much like walking to the edge of the horizon or sailing to the edge of the horizon. If I grew up in the prairies, or if you've lived in the ocean, you've had the opportunity to travel in these kinds of landscapes, you know that there's a horizon that exists. And I'm not really sure how far we can see. When does the Earth's curvature start to overwhelm our senses? At any rate, it feels like it's about 30 or 40 miles on a flat surface. So an 80-mile circle, 140 kilometers. I can walk to the end of that horizon, but I never really have the sensation that I have. I don't step over some cliff. The horizon keeps receding as I move towards it. I never reach it because I'm actually on a ball, a sphere. And if I could lift myself above the surface high enough, as in a plane or in orbit from the moon, I would clearly see that I actually live on a giant sphere with some imperfections, but more or less a sphere. Yet this is not my experience of reality, and likewise with time. When I move to the event horizon of the future, it just becomes another present. So in order for me to envision a future, it's almost necessary for me to imagine myself there. How do I imagine myself not existing? This is a fundamental existential crisis. And yet, that is exactly what we're trying to do. If we really want to look into the future, we have to become so small that we just become an observer, an egoless observer just sort of like a remote sense, like a satellite sent to explore a distant world. We can't actually be present, but we can connect to that source of information. I believe that in many ways this is what meditation and mystical experiences prepare us for. To be observer without identity or ego. This is what we are. And this is what we are not. We are not just a body or a brain or even a mind or a persona or an ego. What we are is almost unknown. The more that we look inward, the more everything seems to collapse into kind of a black hole, and we find ourselves coming out on the other side into a different world. And that's the truth. The event horizon of the illusion of self is a disturbing place to cross. It is not for the faint-hearted or the unprepared. It is not for the faint-hearted or the unprepared. There have been those who have crossed, I suppose, as self-illuminated beings, but they are rare, extremely rare. It's almost more important that we go slowly, at first especially, into these realms, and with some caution. But that we not delay if we have the calling or the capacity to do so. That we look for those who can help us. Shamans, elders, wisdom, the community. In Buddhism they talk about the community and the teacher and the practice. These are all important things. The teachings, the teacher, the practice, and the willingness to go there. So let's start imagining this selfless future now that we are not attached to outcomes such as career, love, success, life, progeny. And this is also what I strove to achieve. I have nothing. I have no credentials. I have no status. I have no money. I have nothing to lose and nothing to gain by coming forward. But I feel compelled to, because I think the future and the past and the present are continually informing one another. And that the future changes the present, and the present changes the future, and the past can be altered by the present. And how would we know if this was true? There's no way that we can presently describe that. Although, at the very edges of physics, we have indications that all is not what it seems. Quantum wave mechanics as I understand it. Does that particles can exist in a kind of a dual state, as a wave or as a particle, as first noted by Heisenberg in the early 1900s in the famous double-slit experiment. We made more complex measurements about spin and interconnectedness. And if every particle was interconnected at the Big Bang, then they're still connected now. Think about that. That's not possible. That is not possible. Einstein was very disturbed by these experiences. He didn't understand it, and we still don't, really. We probably never will. The universe continues to baffle us as much as we would like to lull our senses into thinking that we can physically understand it, but we can't. The universe does not fit inside of our brain. The universe does not fit inside our mind. The universe is so vast, so complex, that it appears more likely that we are some sort of holographic projection rather than a three-dimensional entity. The holographic universe is a valid hypothesis because one of the problems with quantum mechanics, especially Niels Bohr's understanding of his own theory, is that an electron can only exist in a specified location or range called a shell, a valence shell. And these properties have been exploited to understand and make chemical bonds that we just couldn't have imagined otherwise. So it seems as though it is true. We have found nothing to indicate that it isn't true. It's just that it's utterly preposterous. Why can't the electron move outside of these shells? What holds it there? And what happens when it moves from one shell to another? It seems to disappear and reappear. That's not supposed to happen. It exists in a shell of probability. Well, there goes everything solid, isn't it? There's nothing solid. It's just a shell of probability. An endless set of outcomes. Almost as if information made manifest. We don't know. We don't know. If we are the dream of a much larger dreamer, or if that dreamer is us. We don't know if the individual actually exists, but is sort of a ideated point of consciousness, like a star or a cloud of gas or a drop of water, but that we do not exist in isolation. That we're continually changing, and our physical forms are very temporary things. And just like that electron, when our energy levels drop below a certain point, we will disappear and maybe reappear at another lower energy state to be born again. Only we don't remember. We don't seem to be able to take our memories with it if that's the events that do occur. And yet, it's a persistent and nagging problem. What is death? How can a conscious entity die? Stars die. How can a star die? Apparently our sun will go out Well, not like a light bulb. There'll be some fantastic events. First it will First it will expand and consume our planet, destroying everything. And then it will collapse. And there'll be nothing. Nothing. Physical. To say we were ever here. But just maybe the conscious imprint will remain, sort of like lines of code in a computer program, there waiting to be reactivated. There waiting to be reactivated. Computers are interesting. I remember I became quite fascinated by computers in the 80s. I remember I became quite fascinated by computer science in the early 80s, more like obsessed. But unlike my colleagues, I wasn't going to school to get a job, which would have been quite lucrative. And I won't say that I don't regret that at times, but I exist where I am. What I mean to say is my life has not been easy. But I was more fascinated by the pure pursuit of the experience of knowledge, of knowing, as I walk through these leaves of chlorophyll, which apparently is so similar to hemoglobin. And I'm closely related to these plants, that I know them in a certain fashion. And I consume them. And I consume the taste of this life and this apple that I'm eating right now. I was fascinated by computer science because I felt certain that there was no way we could design a machine that would be of some sort of alien intelligence. That we would in fact design a machine that mimicked some of our own systems, like memory, processing, logic. But the only model that we had was our own functioning, that intuitively we were recreating certain aspects of our own capacities for thought. Our own ways of processing. If, then, else, and if, for, next. These kinds of logic constructions, if this condition exists, then this, or else something else. If I cut down this tree, it will fall, or else it will stay standing. Simple logic. And most of our computer programs are made up of similar logical statements, grouped together in incredibly complex ways to produce very intuitive and clear information processing systems that almost seem to respond to our mind in a way that we know. It's like as if we were programmed to do this. That within our collective awareness, there's this need to create a machine that can enhance the capacity of ideas to pass from one human to another with fidelity and fecundity, meaning incredibly abundant growth. We use the term of viral to indicate an idea or a meme that has spread. It's become part of our lexicon, although we really don't understand what we're talking about. But a meme is the smallest chunk of an idea that can exist independently, and that we string memes together to create ideas. And there's all sorts of ideas about memes and ideas about ideas. But what we have done is interconnect billions of minds into a vast galaxy. And just like the way stars form at a certain critical threshold, they ignite. Material gathers at the center of a accretion disk. Our solar system was one of those. More and more and more and more and more and more hydrogen and material exists at the center. And we don't really understand this whole process, but we have a theory that seems to make sense. At a certain critical threshold, the pressure begins to build at the center of this thing as more and more matter falls into this center. The gravity increases, more and more matter falls in. We're talking mostly hydrogen, until finally the pressure is so incredible that the hydrogen atoms are fused. And this incredibly complex thing, a star, comes to life. Our sun is an incredibly magnetically alive thing. It's unbelievable the amount of information in a photon of light. A photon has been careening around these magnetic loops of the sun for 1,000 years or more before it finally leaves the surface and travels to the Earth. How's that for mind-boggling? The light reaching us took 1,000 years just to leave the star. The last few minutes of its journey were the smallest part. A star forms. So, when you take billions of years of evolution and produce billions of neurons, and you keep interconnecting them in new and different ways, eventually you come up with something. 10 billion neurons in density with incredible structural details. Components that evolved or were developed independent of each other that come together. We don't really know. We have stories that we like to tell ourselves because they reinforce the current worldview. But human consciousness is a fundamental mystery. Consciousness itself is an abstract concept that exists outside of the brain. It's something that we share with each other. Language, touch, music, art. It's incredible what we've done. So what happens now when you take this to the next level? You take billions of minds on a planet, perhaps 10 billion minds, and you connect them together. Interconnectedness, where just like on our neurons, one can be connected to 10 or 15 or 20 or 60 or 100 other pathways. Think of Facebook or the internet, is the neural connections of a mind. And you begin to get the idea that something could be occurring that is beyond the experience of the individual. Teilhard de Chardin proposed a name for such a mind in the early part of the 1900s. He called it the noosphere. And he felt that at some point, once enough connections were made, that an entire level of mind would come into self-reflective awareness. He thought that that moment would be like a match to gasoline, a star being born, a consciousness emerging into the world and feeling its breath for the first time, hearing its heart beat like a drum, born. Wow. Is this the times that we're living in? And perhaps, if this is possible, once that moment of activation occurs, everything would change. Each individual neuron or each individual mind would now become synchronized and connected to all the other minds, would cease to be an individual as we know it, as we understand it, would react in ways. Perhaps it might be something like we would just wake up one day and we would be going like, oh, everything is so clear. I understand what it is that I am here for and what I am to do. And I'm quitting my job as a lab tech at some giant agribusiness agency that is now creating more damage than good. And that maybe we would take these new ideas. This idea of genetic manipulation is not inherently evil, I do not think. But when you attach great technologies to a motivation of profit in an outdated capitalistic system, you have a disaster. And I think we're beginning to realize that. And maybe this is a sign of this collective awakening. We're just starting to realize that we have the capacity to make this world, that we are gods of creation at the threshold of a new world. A world where consciousness and interconnectedness become the primary driving force of creation. The age of the human. Anthropocene. We are at the threshold of this age. And it's important that we try to hold things together long enough so that all the connections that are possible and necessary are made. War is a very disruptive thing. And we might in our haste think that we need to destroy the elements of this society that we view as destructive. You know, the people who work for Monsanto, the people who work for the industrial military complex, the people who work for media who are trying to keep us from full realization or what we perceive them to be doing. But maybe in fact we're all performing a function here. And that until this awakening occurs, we must be very careful what parts of the body we choose to excise or cut away. Maybe this will be necessary. But we must be very careful that we don't act from the illusion of self. If all we are concerned with is the survival of our own progeny, or the survival of our own empire, or the survival of our own ideological framework, then we're acting from a place of conformed ideology. We're not acting from the place of our full realized potential as interconnected minds. So our great goal now is to awaken. And I believe that is why meditation, yoga, these sort of esoteric explorations into the margins of physics and the nature of reality, of time, of matter, of the universe, of cosmology, that these are all combining in a moment so far beyond the imagining of an individual that it's like an amoeba trying to comprehend the stars. But that is where we all come from, here on this world. Where do we come from? We come from the stars. No, not in some spaceship. But the very iron in your blood was formed in a star. All the elements that comprise this physical world were formed in countless stars, blue giants, that in their relatively short lifetime and their massive size, they exploded, littering the universe with complex energy and matter as they went supernova, creating carbon, nickel, copper, gold, iron, calcium, oxygen, water, the resultant of hydrogen and oxygen forming. And we are blown away if we really look at it. We are born of stars. We are stardust. We are golden, and we got to find our way back to the garden, so said Joni Mitchell. And at times it might seem that we're no closer to the garden than we were when that song came out. But she was a flag bearer on the road, and she marked a spot in what would become the present. But for her, in the past, was her present. This is what time travelers do. They seed the past with ideas that they've borrowed from the future. They are mediums of communication. Einstein said, the past, the present, the future may be persistent illusions. He was nearing his death. These seemed strange ideas, but there they were. The future is calling us. And I believe we have this capacity for choice, that there are destructive elements and creative elements, and they must be in balance, and that the strangest thing of all is this thing called choice. Does it really exist? Does it really exist? Or do we just make it up? We don't know. Maybe all of our choices are prescribed, predetermined by the complex interaction of matter and energy. And that if we could simply understand it, we could predict every outcome. So thought Stephen Hawking and others. But I don't think so. I think the future is fluid. And I think Einstein was right. And also I think he was incomplete. They are not destinations or points in time-space. They are informatic spaces. They are time, space, and mind. Information. The Kabbalah talks of this fifth dimension of mind. String theory demands no less than 11 dimensions, the hidden ones. What are we to make of dark matter, where universes seem to be born out of? This is too much to take in as an individual, but as a collective species. These are the overarching principles that are now determining our outcomes, and each of us must find that connection within ourselves and nurture it and kindle it and be ready for noetic awakening. I feel almost certain that as an individual we can't exist there, but that as an interconnected point of consciousness in a constellation of stars, that we can. And this is our future. We were born of stars. This is our future. We were born of stars. And to the stars we return. Thank you. May your day be blessed. And may these ideas find you and nurture within you seeds of your own awakening. And if any of this resonates and you feel the desire to share, please do. For that is what we came here for. Thank you.
She told me the dragonflies and salamanders were reindeer. She was the kind of girl that could say something like that, and I would not think she was half crazy. And you know what I think? I think it might be true. Situation any brighter. It just got lighter than it's ever been. Thank you.